My guest today is Jan Gorzny. Jan is, well, he is, I don't know actually exactly what you do with Zircuit. I don't have it in my notes, Jan, but I guess you're a co-founder, I imagine. Can we just briefly explain that right at the top of the show?
Absolutely, yeah. Hi, I am Jan, and I am a technical lead and co-founder at Zircuit, which basically means I am building out the product, which is zero knowledge rollup for Ethereum.
Yes, indeed. All right. Well, thank you, Jan. Let's do what we do at the beginning of the show. It'd be cool if you could please introduce yourself a little further in terms of, be great to hear a little bit about your personal and professional background, your backstory, what you've been doing in the lead up to co-founding Zircuit.
Yeah, sounds good. So my history is a bit academic. I sort of did a bunch of degrees. I finished a PhD a couple of years ago at the University of Waterloo, studying computer science, but nothing really related to blockchain. Nonetheless, I was very interested in the space, and I started being a researcher uh, in the space, and I was looking at scaling protocols. So when I entered the space, Plasma was really hot, and it was at the same time the Lightning Network sort of came around on paper for Bitcoin, and I kept following these solutions as they went on and on. And that was probably about 2018, 2017, something around that time. And I kept researching these topics, and they sort of naturally evolved into things like rollups. And so, I mean, some others said, hey, we should try to figure out if we can do our own rollup because we had actually gotten some grants from the Ethereum Foundation to look at various topics and sort of see how these systems work in detail. And we were playing around with these ideas and thought, you know what, let's see if we can, build one so that we can do our own things with it, not, try to either convince people that, we have a stronger idea than theirs or have to be subjected to other people's desires for their own roll-ups. And so we sort of did that. And around November of last year, which is 2023, Circuit sort of came out of stealth, and we launched our testnet, and now we're on the road to mainnet. So,
Yeah, fantastic. Well, okay, well, give us a bit of context there then. So, what's happening with the testnet at the moment? How far away do we think is mainnet? And yeah, I guess what do you need to see, if you like, before we look to mainnet?
yeah, sounds good. So testnet's been going really well. It's been in operation now, I guess, for about 6 months. I guess that's November. Yeah, it's about 6 months. Things are going quite well. There's been some good reporting of information from hackathon users and hackathon developers and end users and things like this. Things that were very minor that we sorted out. And overall, it's been good. It's been up almost all of the time. And that's what you want from a testnet. You want it to be being tested. So it's sort of nice that there were some things that people found, but also it's been great that it's been up most of the time. As we look towards mainnet, we're trying to wrap up some of the internal tech. The system itself is EVM compatible, which means that if you develop on Ethereum, you should be able to develop on Circuit without any major hiccups or challenges. It should be as simple as changing the endpoint for where you deploy your contracts. And uh, so, the testnet looks a lot like what mainnet will look like in terms of like user experience, but there's stuff that has to happen under the hood and in the background before we're confident to release the network sort of for real funds. So we're looking at things like improving, our proof generation time, or optimizing costs internally for that, or making the smart contracts a little bit cleaner, or making sure the sequencer is, always up and responding. When we started, some things weren't there for what mainnet should be now. Things like blob transactions, so EIP 4844, which should save lots of money, wasn't a thing that we were sort of thinking about in November. But now that they're out, we're going to think about that and implement that. And the hope is to have mainnet this year. That's on track. We're saying summer, but I don't want anyone to hold me to a specific date, and we won't release until it's ready. So ideally, summer is going to be the one, but you know we'll make sure that when real funds are at sort of risk, then we're confident about releasing the network. So
Sure. And you guys describe yourself as well, your website does. I presume you do as well, Jan. It says a Zircuit is an AI-enabled modular ZK roll-up powered by the latest research in layer 2 technology. So yeah, a layer 2 with AI-enabled security. Look, I'm not accusing you of jumping on the AI buzzword bandwagon or anything like that, Jan, but just please, I don't know if
yeah,
I'm not. I haven't heard that before. Forgive me. So maybe just explain a little bit about the
absolutely.
context there,
Yeah, I mean, it is admittedly a lot of buzzwords, but they're justified, so we might as well say them.
please.
And I'll focus on the AI to start. And it's this notion that we're going to take AI and look at layer two transactions. So what we're doing is pioneering a concept called sequencer level security, where our sequencer is in a privileged role, and we think we can add a little bit of value to end users by sort of taking advantage of that role. And what we're going to do in particular is take all the layer two transactions that are going to happen on the chain and run them through an AI model that looks at, the previous hacks on Ethereum and detects if a transaction is malicious. And if that's the case, we're going to put the transaction into quarantine, and it's not going to come out of quarantine unless we think it's not a hack. But if it is a real hack, it's not going to happen. And that means for 99% of users, nothing is going to change. It's a seamless experience. But if you're that, 0.1% or possibly larger percent of people trying to exploit other people on the layer two, your transaction is not going to go through and you're going to have a bad time. And I think this is a really interesting concept because, while people have centralized sequencers, which is currently the case, we can certainly add this very easily. And there's no reason to say that you need a centralized sequencer to do this. It's certainly a little bit easier to develop, of course, and run. Um, but while people are doing rollups in this way, we might as well sort of give them some value that isn't just a little bit cheaper than Ethereum. I mean, obviously, it's going to be much cheaper, but we can really do more. And I think we've seen this sort of not, explicitly called for in the recent days, but there was, I think, an issue or an exploit that occurred on another layer two a couple of weeks ago. And, I heard on Twitter that people were saying, roll back the chain, roll back the chain. Like, this is such a bad hack, let's undo it.
Mm.
And I don't think they did. And I can't blame them. Rolling back seems, not impossible, but it's non-trivial. You have to then, what do you do with the transactions afterwards? And, what's the state of the chain? How do you convince people that this was a good idea? Are you going to alienate some of your user base? Uh, all of that is a challenge. But if you can just prevent that from happening the first time, then, you don't have any of those challenges. No one's going to be making calls on Twitter to say, roll it back. They'll just say, oh, wow, this was prevented. My funds are safe. And I think that'll be really, really interesting for a lot of people. I sort of expect that big financial players will really, really like the feature because, they can sort of rest at ease that their funds are going to be more secure in ways that smart contracts can't provide, right? You can imagine situations where you get a DeFi protocol that's flash loaned and sort of the smart contract always thinks it was performing the way it should have. But in reality, we know that someone's funds were wiped out in some way that wasn't intended, and we can prevent that. So I think that's going to be very interesting. I think people will like it. I think some people will not like it, but I think most people will actually see there's some value there.
Yep. Very well said, Jan. Look, the Ethereum layer two space, very interesting, but has become a little bit, I don't know, confusing or fragmented from the outside perspective. At least, I guess that's fair to say over the last 2 years or so, really. Obviously, you're deep in the space, but how would you characterize it at the moment? And I guess, what do you see as the path forward, and how do you think Circuit plays into that?
Yeah, so I think a multi-chain future on Ethereum is certainly going to be the reality. I don't know how many chains will sort of grow and then stabilize. I would imagine it's more than three. L2Beat, I think, a website that tracks these systems currently list something like 30 or 40, I think, maybe, some of which are in development, some of which are deployed. Uh, and I think that's pretty interesting for a lot of reasons. First, you're going to start seeing some really cool stuff come out of that. So things like Zircuit's sequencer level security is going to add features that people weren't really thinking about or, thought possible on this space. But with a proliferation of chains, you can actually do this because you can target specific users, or users can find the chain that matches their needs. And I think that's really cool because you'll see different user bases with different needs appear, and then people responding to sort of catering to their needs by developing the protocol that needs to be there, right? So, you could envision a world where, you take your favorite programming language that isn't Solidity, and you have a roll-up for that. And, that just works. And that's really kind of cool. That's made possible by a lot of exciting technology in the recent years, like zero knowledge proofs. And, I think we're certainly okay with that multi-chain future, right? There's not a lot of block space on Ethereum. So if you think of like all the traffic that the current like Web2 infrastructure needs to handle, Ethereum's got no chance unless it does something like this. And you could try to make the chain bigger in the monolithic sense, and sort of like increase the gas size, or increase blocks, or whatever the standard scaling solutions are. But that has complications, and it's sort of simpler to just let people build these chains that inherit a lot of that security, but also tailor to their user bases. And I think um, because of that simplicity, it's a good idea, and I think it's working. Now, I don't think that I want to see a world where there's necessarily 20, or sorry, 200 chains in the next 6 months. Liquidity will be fragmented. People have a bad time. You have people talking to others saying, "Oh, what chain are you on?" It'll be very different. But certainly, a number in the tens makes sense to start, and we'll see, good technology sort of win out and bad technology sort of not go well. Uh, and I think that's okay. I think we'll see some good exploration and really really cool stuff. I've got this, I don't think it's a unique notion that rollups are sort of middleware. They're a system that operates below the application level. So for decentralized apps, below sort of the smart contracts, obviously they're executing them, but on top of sort of the core infrastructure of the network, which is Ethereum itself. And when you view these systems as middleware, you can sort of ask, well, what can different middleware do for different people? And should they or could they? And I think the answer is yes. You'll see people doing some really, really cool stuff. And I think it'll be really exciting. And I don't think it'll be a lot easier for users. I forget the original question partly, but I'm trying to address all the points you mentioned. I don't think it'll be a lot easier in terms of user understanding. I think you said like it's going to be confusing, and there's been a lot. I think that's unfortunately the reality for a little bit. Certainly there are projects that have different marketing spins to different things, and people will try that more and more. Uh, but if the documentation is clear, and if we as a community push for, some really rigorous standards in how these systems should behave, I think I don't think it'll be that big of a problem eventually. Next 6 months probably be a bunch of trying to figure out which chain is right for which person, but I think it'll eventually come out in the wash.
Yeah, thank you, Jan. Some good points there. And I guess, I mean, you kind of talked about this, but I'd say, what about Ethereum in general? What's your sense of, I suppose, how the Ethereum ecosystem or the Ethereum community is progressing at the moment? And, in the same way that I guess the layer two situation is slightly confusing from the outside. It feels like the Ethereum narrative has just got a little bit lost, maybe just as kind of Bitcoin returned to the fore with the ETFs and so on, and then Solana kind of took over as the fast cheap chain, if you like,
Yeah.
for good or bad. And Solana has its own issues certainly, but Ethereum did seem to get squeezed for a little while there. I don't know if it looks like that from within the community or not.
So yeah, I'm certainly not a trader, so I won't sort of comment on sort of the I guess the impact too much on the ETFs or things like this. But I am, pretty optimistic about the Ethereum ecosystem. The points you raised about the Solana being a little bit cheaper and faster right now, maybe that's true. I think the rollups, are a good way to counter that on Ethereum itself. I think people are excited about that. I think as part because of the middleware, you'll actually see a lot more diversity, right? Even on Solana, I would imagine there are people who don't like the Solana VM, just like there are people on Ethereum who don't like the Ethereum VM. And you can change that on a rollup very easily because you only need to convince you and your sort of co-founders to say, I want to build a different rollup. And I think there's a thesis for that. Changing the entire network is very difficult. So I think embracing a multi-chain future like Ethereum has done is going to win out in the long run. Bitcoin itself, I was a fan of Bitcoin. I got into it in 2017 or a little before that, maybe. I don't remember exactly the dates. I'm not seeing the technical innovation there. Admittedly, I'm not spending a lot of time, in the code and the weeds there, because I do work in Ethereum most of the time. I think, it's a good coin and did a lot of good things, but Ethereum seems to be embracing technology at a rate that the others don't seem to be doing. And I could be wrong, I don't claim to know everything, but Ethereum has a very strong roadmap for how it's going to continue to innovate. And they seem to actually be following it, right? The dates may not be precise and, they sometimes take a little longer than you want, but it's actually being upgraded over time, quite considerably, right? We saw big jumps from the consensus mechanism, years ago from proof of work to proof of stake. And now we saw another big jump in what, March, where we had block transactions added, which are, pretty big changes to the protocol. And I think if Ethereum keeps taking those sort of like innovation risks, they're not technical risks in the sense that, they're not going to do something that will put users' funds at risk, but innovation risks in the sense that like, maybe it will complicate the protocol, or maybe there's some research that needs to be done before they can safely do it. I think it's going to keep being a very strong competitor. And combined with this thesis of multiple chains where we get a little bit more freedom to do whatever we want, it feels sort of more like the real world to me. It's less of a dictatorship, more of a decentralized place where, maybe capitalism wins out in some sense because you have to pick your favorite chains and things like this. But I think that flexibility is nice. So I'm very optimistic. I am not getting people pessimism in this space. So I don't feel like there's anyone in the community saying, "Ah, now Solana's winning now," or Bitcoin's back and we're doomed. They're excited about the markets going up, I'm sure, but I am not hearing people saying we have to abandon Ethereum dApp development and go elsewhere. So
Yeah.
I'm optimistic.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm optimistic too, and I think that's very well said. And one thing that the Ethereum community has always had been sort of characterized as having this, hopeful, optimistic, almost utopian vision, right? And I was looking through the Zircuit website, Jan, and it just strikes me that the kind of the everything from the illustrations that you have and the color palette, it's really actually really nicely done. It's kind of like almost a retro future Buckminster Fuller type vibe to it. If does that make sense?
Yeah, that was sort of the intent. I think we were going for something like solar punk, and I don't know if that came
Yeah.
through, but something bright and welcoming, and where everyone can find their spot, because naturally as an L2 you can do whatever you sort of want to do on a L1, except I guess hack people. But also that could mean putting L3s and putting other things on it. So we definitely wanted to embrace that, and I think most protocols on Ethereum think the same way. There's very few people out there, who don't want to be welcoming. So I think the whole ecosystem is very, very good for this.
Yeah, maybe that's just I'm old enough to know who Buckminster Fuller is, but I think solarpunk is the more contemporary way of expressing this kind of vision.
Sure.
But it's all paths along the same tree. Jan, look, I understand you're in Dubai at the moment for that's token 2049, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. So
Yep.
it's off to a rainy start. There's lots of jokes about people being liquidated, which I hope is just a joke and everyone is staying safe. Um, the actual event hasn't started yet, or at least I haven't attended just yet. But I think it'll start in a day or two. Um, the excitement here is real though, and there's a ton of side events. So I was on a panel yesterday at L3 Summit, which I think was put on by ZK Link, and another one with Google actually, who is also embracing some Web3 tech. And you know, there's a lot of roads that don't, you know, support cars. They're more, you know, likely to support boats right now. Not everywhere, and there's certainly patches of it where you definitely can drive and it's dry. But nonetheless, these events were well attended. Like it's actually surprising that like despite the sort of difficulties of getting an Uber or a taxi, the panel, you know, I was on was not to an empty room. Right. I got there early and I was like, oh man, who's actually going to show up to this thing? And a lot of people actually did. So I think there is still excitement. I do think that speaks to the tenacity of the ecosystem. And I'm looking forward to see what the rest of sort of the vibe is here for Token 2049 proper and all the other side events that will be going on.
Yeah, and look, not to get too deep into the weeds on this, but I've seen that there's sort of a lot of chatter on X or Twitter about whether it was the cloud seeding that's caused this, you know, the wild weather, or just an extreme weather event, or a bit of both, or is there sort of a consensus on what caused the rain, or not really?
I mean, again, not a meteorologist, and I highly doubt most people at the conference were also meteorologists, but everyone seems to think it's cloud seeding. I don't know if that's accurate. I don't know if that tech actually works. I've never, you know,
Yeah,
seen it in act. But if it worked really
yeah.
well. And there's a lot of water now, so I'm really hoping everyone stays safe and everyone can make it in because I know the airport also had some issues.
Mm.
Um, so
And just
yeah,
on Zircuit, also, I see you got some pretty good names behind Zircuit, Pantera Capital, Dragonfly. So you got some good backing and industry support, which I'm sure helps a lot.
yeah. I mean, a lot of that is interested in the staking, the restaking protocol that we have right now, where you can take your, I guess, LRT tokens and restake them to earn circuit points. And you know, that's been really great. We launched that in February, and I think we're up to like 1.7 or 1.8 billion dollars in restaking tokens on that protocol right now. So you can take things like Renzo or other things and restake it to get points. And you know, it's been good to show that we have a community that believes in us. You know, it's not just we launched a roll up and no one noticed. Actually, people paid attention. And this isn't, you know, the only initiative we have. We have this build to earn thing where if you want to build on Circuit for mainnet, you can submit something there and you know, talk to us and we'll reach out and say, oh yeah, that sounds great. You know, let's make this a reality. And it shows that we have, I think, a really strong community, and I'm excited to work with the community to actually build out this protocol when we go live. Because when we go live, obviously, you know, we want to have a really strong L2 with a community that has dApps. Because if we believe that we're adding security in this way, we want people to be doing things on our chain, right? It'll be more secure inherently, sort of by definition, and therefore we want as many people on our chain as possible. So
Yes,
it's been
indeed. Yeah, it looks great. I'm looking through the staking part of the website at the moment. Well, look, okay, Jan, for anyone who wants to know more about Zircuit or potentially get involved, yeah, do some staking and earn some Zircuit points as well. So maybe just tell people what the best place to go to learn more about this is.
Yeah, so Zircuit.com will definitely take you to the two main initiatives, which are staking and the build to earn program. And I believe the staking is stake.zircuit.com. And the other one is build.zircuit.com. Oh, it should be correct. And yeah, just submit the form if you want to build. That's sort of the place to be if you're a developer or you know something else. You don't have to be strictly a developer if you're looking to improve our docs or you know you have a different design suggestion or something. I think we'd be interested in hearing all of that. But certainly if you are doing a dApp or you know want to partner with us in some BD capacity, go there. And otherwise, yeah, staking on stake.circuit.com. You know, put your LRTs in there and enter points and it should be great.
Awesome. And links are in the show notes, listeners, to both of those websites. Jan, I think what we do now is go to a very quick break, and then we'll come back. We'll have some fun. We will finish off by running you through the very famous crypto conversation hot take round. Back in 1 second.
Okay, thanks.
And boom, just like that, we are back. And I'm with Jan Gorzny. Jan, of course, co-founder of Zircuit, AI-enabled modular ZK rollup. Yeah, cutting edge blockchain really looks very interesting indeed. Yeah, Jan, look, I like to finish each podcast with a quick round of rapid fire crypto conversation hot takes. Are you up for it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it, Jan. Just going to run some questions at you. No right or wrong way to do it. Question one for you is, where would you say that you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-chain opportunist spectrum?
Definitely multi-chain opportunist. I think I was pretty clear about that earlier, where rollups, I think, are the future of scaling for most of these systems, and they add some flexibility. So definitely not a Bitcoin maximalist. I think it's got a good place. Hope the number goes up, but multi-chain all the way.
Very well said. All right. What would you say then is your firmest conviction crypto opinion?
Oh, that ZK rollups are definitely the future over optimistic rollups. I don't think that's very contentious. I don't think it's that much of a hot take, but it's definitely my firmest conviction. I think the sort of lower finality times and the sort of trust in math is way better than trust in crypto economics. And I think long term we'll see those win out, especially as the price comes down.
Very well said. All right. Look, Jan, Bill Gates famously said that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. As a blockchain builder, you'll be very familiar with that kind of idea. But look, 10 years, long time in blockchain. Cast your mind forward, though. You know, whatever you like, Ethereum, Layer 2s, Zircuit, Web3, the Internet of Blockchains. What does it all look like in 10 years' time?
Not 100% sure, but I think the biggest, place for innovation and adoption will be layer threes. I think right now, onboarding people is becoming sort of a solved problem. I don't think it's solved yet, but in 10 years, hopefully we will have nice on-ramps and off-ramps and all of that. And you'll see people wanting to do things at scale in their own way for their own purposes. And the way to really do that, if you're building a big application, is a layer three. So you can have an app chain where you implement your own state transition logic and you add your own features and you do some really cool things. You can envision an enterprise client trying to bring their application onto the blockchain. Right now, they'd have to do everything out in the public, out in the clear, because Ethereum is public and transparent. But maybe they can add some privacy to their specific part of the chain, namely a layer three. And similarly, you could put a game into a layer three, and you can do all these really cool things. So I think in 10 years, we will see people actually building applications that aren't sort of limited to what you can do in a single transaction on a smart contract, because you'll have these app chains. And I think that'll be a really exciting future to live in.
Sounds good to me. Very well said. All right. Another way of thinking about this is a quote by William Gibson, who, of course, said that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. With that in mind, Jan, can you think of an example of the future being here right now, but most people aren't aware of it?
Yeah, definitely zero knowledge proofs for applications other than rollups. I don't know what those look like, but they've got to exist. I think ZKML is starting to sort of scratch the surface of what you can do with ZK off of a blockchain. But what I really want to see is some applications where there's compute heavy stuff put into a ZK system, and you can run it on your system and verify it on the blockchain. And it's not a rollup, it just does something else. You could also use this really cool for gaming, right? You can envision playing games in a zero knowledge proof system and then uploading your results to the chain and certifying to people that you didn't cheat. And I think that's really cool. As someone who plays lots of online games, I really would love proof that people did not cheat in my games. And I think zero knowledge is being slept on in sort of the Web 2 or classic world, because right now everyone just associates it, I think, mostly with rollups. Maybe I'm biased because I'm building one, but I think there's a ton of other applications that we're missing.
I like it. Brings us nicely to our final question, Jan, which is, what is your favorite science fiction book, film, or TV show?
Oh, man, if this is supposed to be a quick take, I can't remember what comes to mind here, but I think Neuromancer was pretty good. I think I read that and I like that. I can't remember for my strict favorite, but yeah, I mean, it's up there. So I'll use that as my answer to start.
Neuromancer that's a great answer. Fantastic. Yeah, well, look, that is brings us nicely to the end of the show, really, Jan. So, look, thank you so much for coming on and spending some time with us today, to bring us up to speed, really, with look, Ethereum Layer 2's Zircuit, everything that's going on. Again, just finish off by telling people if they want to stake some assets or developers looking to build on Zircuit, again, what should they do? Where should they go?
Yeah, so go to circuit.com and then, stake some LRTs or submit a proposal for build earn and earn some points.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jan. All the best, and bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, there you go. That was a Jan from Zircuit. Very interesting. Sounds like, yeah, I mean, by the time people are listening or watching this, the Dubai token 2049 will be in the distant past. But yeah, just looking at all the photos and the video in Dubai today, it looks crazy. Looks crazy. Yeah, flooding in Dubai. Who would have thought? Interesting times. Was it the clouds? I don't know. I don't know. All right, team. That was another episode. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This was the Crypto Conversation for Brave New Coin. See ya.